Hi, everyone. Welcome to Blockchain Value, where we discuss developments in blockchain and crypto and NFTs and Metaverse and all kinds of other stuff. We are focusing on how our lives will transform in near future, how our communities will change, and how the world will be a different place. Today, I have a very special guest. We will focus talking on Metaverse. He's been in the field for a long time and brings quite a lot of knowledge. And I am inviting you to ask questions and be part of the conversation because you are so much more likely to enjoy it and actually get something out of it if you're part of it. So definitely do that. And before we begin, I'm going to ask you to do one more thing. If you have a suggestions of someone who is on the forefront of this technology, of this amazing technology, and building something exciting, or somebody who's supporting someone who's building something exciting and has something to add on this about this technology, definitely let me know. I would love to continue having conversations with builders and thought leaders in this field so we can continue learning together. And with that, welcome, Dirk. I'm so excited to have a conversation with you about Metaverse. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Elga, thank you for having me on this great show. So maybe I also say good evening for some people right around the world. And yeah, my name is Dirk Lueth. I'm a co-founder and co-CEO of Upland. We have developed the platform or Metaverse platform we call Upland. I don't know if you've seen, we have a llama. Actually, I'm wearing a t-shirt today even, which has it. And we've been working on that since 2018. And my background is I live here now in Silicon Valley since many years, but originally I'm from Germany, so I can't hide my accent. But I've been working in the, let's say, decentralized ledger and blockchain space since 2011. So maybe call me kind of an OG, and I've seen a lot of things which are working, which are not working. And we're quite happy that Upland, the Earth's Metaverse, how we call it, is actually working out quite well so far.
Really cool. And tell us more about Upland. The llama is definitely very adorable and cute. So I just love, llama. Oh yeah, there it is. But tell us, for those people who may or may not know exactly what it is, what is it, and what's the point?
Yeah, so Upland is when I mentioned Earth's Metaverse, that means we are part of the Metaverse, which is mapped to the real world. And the way we've started Upland was with my co-founders Manny Honigstein and Idan Zuckerman in 2018. They were coming both from the gaming space, I was from the blockchain space, and we said, okay, we were playing Monopoly one night, and we really enjoyed the game, and they said, what if we take the idea, this inspiration of Monopoly, bring it onto the blockchain and use the real world to it with it. And then that's how Upland was basically born. So Upland, when you think about it, is you can download it on the iOS and Android app stores. You can also use it just on the web. You get a map application for right now roughly 20 cities in the US, and you can zoom into that map application, and then you can purchase actually a property which is based on a real world property borders. And that's how the whole gamification then starts, right? So you have now to collect properties with same characteristics, maybe on the same street or maybe 3 museums. So this sets in motion the whole trading between players and lots of interactivities between the players, which then drives, of course, excitement and the community. We have a very large community, roughly 50,000 people right now on Discord, and which they love just to interact with the game. But the idea is, we always say that Upland is based on 3 pillars: play, earn, and connect. Play means that you are able to, what I just said, complete the collection. As I said, we're inspired by Monopoly, and you increase your yield because you start earning a small income on your properties when you complete the collection. Then we have scavenger hunts. We have treasure hunts. We do live events in the app. Soon we're going to have car races. It's going to be super exciting. So that's the first pillar, play. The second pillar is then earn. Eventually, we want to create hundreds and maybe thousands or maybe millions of entrepreneurs one day who can actually work and earn money in Upland, not just by speculating, purchasing properties at a cheap price and selling it expensive. No, by really creating value, selling digital goods in the Upland world or NFTs to other players. So we call that actually meta ventures, which they are going to operate. So that's a second pillar. And then the third pillar is basically connect what I just mentioned. We have a big community on Discord, but we want them also to meet in virtual coffee shops or maybe in a stadium when they're a sports fan. We have a partnership, for instance, with the NFL Player Association. So there's a lot of things people can do then in the app to socialize with each other.
Oh, that is really cool. So I like the intersection of blockchain and monopoly. That sounds really exciting. You said a couple of things. You mentioned sort of the game element to it, right? But it also seems like it is sort of transitioning to the lifestyle. At some point, the game is life. So it's very interesting. Is it a game? Or because you talk about people actually being there and making a living and calling it home. So that game versus life, like where does it begin and end? How are you thinking about it? Is it a game or is it a life? Or both?
I think it's becoming more the second, right? However, it's always going to blur, right? So because first of all, real life and our virtual life, they're blurring everywhere these days. And especially in Upland, since we're based on the real world, that's much, much easier. So it's really hard to distinguish what is there, because you go there to get you entertained, you meet people, you make money in Upland because you're contributing value. So I clearly see that, not just us, but in general, the metaverse is going to be around us, coming closer to us as such, in terms of technology. And then we are much more, immersed into that world on an everyday basis. People always ask me, what's the grand vision of Upland? And we say, well, in 3 or 4 years, I could imagine that Upland's your daily companion. Where just, you hang out a little bit, you do something for fun, or again, you earn your money, your daily living. In Upland, we already have the first person who said he's going to quit his daytime job, right, just to make money in Upland.
Really cool. You mentioned the word metaverse a couple of times. That term is also sometimes kind of mashed together with Web3. Those are two different concepts. So let's kind of, maybe you can tell me, what is metaverse and what is the relationship with Web3 and how those are different?
Yeah, maybe start out with Web3, where we're coming from. And you think about when you take media and technology, how it all started. Like in the 1920s, you had black and white movies, right? You were in the theater and you actually just saw the movie on the screen. There was a piano player. There was this famous movie where there was a train going through the station, and then people were so afraid that it was so real. At that time, they perceived it as real. They were running out of the cinema because they thought the train is going to enter the building. So, and then you have in the late 30s, you had the radio coming up with Orson Welles doing War of the Worlds. People were thinking aliens invading the Earth, and now they have to flee. So, but it was all just fiction at that moment. And then you had TV, and then you had cable TV, and we spent more and more time with media. Then obviously the internet came, 1.0. So we had basically websites. Then Web 2.0 came, which was then the social web, where we took much more out of our daily time, to work, with social media like Facebook and Snapchat and what have you. And now we have actually Web 3. But what is new in Web 3 is that is actually adding another technology, let's say, kind of layer to it, where you can exchange value. When it was free on Web 1.0 to exchange information, basically at no cost, and Web 2.0 was basically about connecting. Web 3.0 is about exchanging of value. And then you have all these things like DeFi, NFTs, and whatever comes out of that, of course, token, fungible, non-fungible tokens, and so on. So that all is then a part of Web 3. But now you have the metaverse, and the metaverse is all about experience. And of course, you have experience when you think about games today, Fortnite, Minecraft, and so on. That's part of the experience. It's something like it's a 3D environment where you can imagine, or something where you immerse in. That is metaverse. However, that's there's so different opinions. Some people say even now we're on StreamYard here, right? We are in the metaverse already because somehow we're virtually together. people say Minecraft is a metaverse, Fortnite is a metaverse, but we here at Upland, we rather think, no, there's something missing. You need, first of all, to have an experience. Yes, that is what all the others are also providing. But you also need to have something which is what is called true ownership. And we're going back to Web3. What Web3 enables. True ownership means you own the digital goods which you are, which you're using within that virtual world. And because you own those virtual goods or NFTs, actually, you can create an economy in like a real world economy in the metaverse. Because otherwise, if you cannot really transfer virtual ownership, then you, as let's say the metaverse operator, you can always take away stuff from people. Then it's just a pseudo economy. That's not a real one, and that's what we allow.
I love that. I love how your definition of metaverse turns on two components. One, the experience, right? Actually, kind of being part of it. The other one is, and you said this term repeatedly. This is a term that's been used in blockchain for a while. True ownership. So I want to pause for a moment and kind of talk what that means. When you talk about true ownership, and you mentioned, NFTs as an example of that, tell me more. Let's kind of define that term. What does it mean to truly own something digitally?
Yeah, so truly, I think because when we started out on Upland at the beginning, we were trying to avoid the word NFT because we thought it's too technical, but today it looks like a mainstream word already. But nevertheless, I think when you want to translate it to, let's say, mainstream lingo, we always say, if you don't own it, you cannot sell it. Yeah, so that's a very important aspect of true ownership. You always have the possibility to find. You have, of course, to find a buyer for your good, but that's what you can do. That was not possible in Web 2.0. It was only possible. Let's say, maybe not completely true what I'm saying here. This was possible through an intermediary, but if the intermediary always said, "Oh, I don't want that to happen," then they can always take the ownership away from you. And this is what now Web 3.0 enables in the metaverse, this possibilities to sell things.
Gotcha. So the other component, and you keep alluding in metaverse, is that element of community, and that's a very important element. And frankly, anything, blockchain and Web3 and metaverse. Why? Why is the community sort of increasingly becoming important? Why is this sort of a very important other word along with NFTs and metaverse and Web3? Why is so much focus on the community?
Well, you can look at this from two angles, right? So first of all, when you launch or start a company, right, and when you think you know everything, and then you put it on top of people and say, hey, here's our ideas, right? Some people might like it, some people don't like it. That was the typical one-to-many broadcast type of communication which we had with TV. That has changed a little bit. With the web, where this many-to-many communication was possible, like on social media. However, there was still one important component missing, is really where people can actually add this idea that they can add goods to the whole communication, of being together and exchange things, exchange value, because then our relationships become much more worth. And that's why it's so important that all those, let's say, metaverse, which are based on blockchain, they always have a big emphasis on community. They listen a lot to community because the community has so many more ideas than you can ever have as a single operator. And that creates then a big explosion of creativity and new things which were not imagined which could happen.
What makes metaverse exciting, and you alluded a couple of times, is this presence of digital objects, right, to which you have true ownership, that allows you to create value, that you can increase value and boost creativity through community. But what we fundamentally see is that what we think of digital object is changing. It's a much more interesting thing than it used to be. So what are the characteristics of a new and exciting digital objects with new properties that allows it to make Metaverse such an exciting place to be and to be entertained and possibly, have almost a much more prolonged presence and maybe even quit your job and be part of it?
So I think what is important is when you own something, you care about it. And so when it's like to give you one example, when you own a house in real life, you take care of it. So, and when you just rent it, you're not taking so much care, right? So that's the first thing. Then because and with the effect, what I said is because you can maybe one day sell it again, or you just a lover of your house where you live. And so, but this that helps them to really initiate creative thinking. You want to create maybe very nice whatever attic or however you want to create what we want to do in your house, and this is so important and this is just the concept of a house, but now you can actually transfer that idea also to any other good. It could be maybe a record which you own now, a piece of music, right, from a musician. Now you own it, and now you can maybe take some of the music, it depends on the rights which you're getting, and create, maybe remix it and do something special to it, right? So you become much more creative. There's some kind of form of belonging also, that to say, okay, maybe there was one musician who maybe had 100 NFTs, and those have been bought by his fans or her fans, and then they actually allow them to be part of that community, of that mini community, to create something new and more awesome, right? And that is what is so groundbreaking here.
Yeah. You sort of attach the history of the object, and that enriches the object in the process. It makes it more exciting because it has a history, has community, has value attached. You can actually kind of enhance the object as you go. You mentioned NFTs a few times, non-fungible tokens, the new sort of digital objects with true ownership, the properties attached to it that make it exciting. You also mentioned a couple of times that at first you had reservations around sort of combining NFTs with Metaverse. At some point you've changed your mind. Dirk, help me understand kind of what was the journey, to connect Metaverse to NFTs, and why, and kind of where we've been, where we are, and where we're going with that.
Well, in Upland, we always had the vision of this, the notion of true ownership. The only thing was marketing-wise what we haven't used. So we also, when our URL is upland.me, and we started the company in 2018, that stands for Metaverse, right? At that time, we said, okay, we cannot use the word Metaverse, we cannot use NFTs. NFTs was already given name at that time because of CryptoKitties and CryptoPunks. But we thought, when you want to go really mainstream, people will not really understand it. This has changed, right? Probably not right. So you can use those words today in your marketing lingo. But I think the most important thing is when you take NFTs you can create things which you cannot do really in the physical world, right? That's why the Metaverse and NFTs are somehow A and B, which equals C and more, which is just which you can not do in the physical world, where you just have limits because of physical space. You have limits because of what you're allowed to do, because there's many things you can do in the Metaverse, like when you have a property, virtual property, you can build something, can build a skyscraper on it, when in real world you would not be able to do that because it's just, allowed to build maybe one-story home or so. So that is why it's so fascinating to integrate, the whole ideas of NFTs into the Metaverse.
Very interesting. I have a couple more questions. We're coming to the end. Let's maybe you guys started selling actual virtual land in Upland. Where are you with that? Real estate adventure in Metaverse. Are you done selling, or will there be more land? How is that going?
Yeah, as you know, we were based on the real world. I mean, in theory, we could have opened up the whole world and say, here's the world, go crazy, or whoever wants to do something in
Hey, you
the
can do
Earth metaverse.
universe too. So, like, why limit yourself to this world? I'm just saying. But yes, sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, no, but that was the idea. Is basically no, we have to, and this is what is so important when you want to run a metaverse economy. That you always have, first of all, you have to follow, let's say, the traditional rules of any economy, and that means also you have always to balance very fine out supply and demand. Because just imagine you open up the whole world and it's just too much supply out there, and then the market would not really develop. So what we are doing at Upland is we're launching one city after the other. So as I said, we're right now live here in 20 cities in the US, San Francisco, New York, Chicago, and so on. And what we allow users then is, to start to develop those cities. And when we see there's more and more users, which is currently happening, are coming in, we have to open up new cities, because otherwise, because that's the other way when you think, in an economic terms, is that, there's too much scarcity, and that drives prices artificially up. So we really have to balance out between, having too little or too much supply. And that is what, again, coins the, stable market or stable economy of the metaverse. And this is our number one objective. That's what I'm thinking every day about, how to keep the economy stable. And as you, like in real life, you always have, certain loopholes, stuff you haven't thought about, right? And people are always very creative in trying to find those loopholes. They have to close them all. Yeah. So, but it's like in real life, when people trying to find a loophole in taxes, right? They always know how to save taxes somehow.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. And look, I mean, designing economies is not a small thing. I mean, all you have to do is actually look at real world economy and see economies and see, the shades of success and failures. So, some are more successful than others, and some, repeatedly aren't. So it is actually not a small feat to constantly balance, the supply and demand of value, and to keep people engaged. So that's not a small job. One of the other things I wanted to discuss with you is the connection of Upland or Metaverse with other properties, right? Ability to have a bridge to another game, or ability to have other experiences. Because if you want to make, Upland more habitable, if you may want to make it an interesting place to be, a comfortable place to stay, whatever that means to people, they need to be able to do something. You can't be the all provider of all entertainment and right and things to do. Or how are you thinking about that?
Yeah, I think you're touching here on the interoperability. What is also a big part of, let's say, the blockchain metaverse, who are doing this. You want to allow, because what we always say, we want to put the user at the center, right? You have your digital goods because you truly own them, what I said earlier today, and then you maybe want to transport them to other places. So in Upland specifically, we're currently working what is called an Nft Portal, where you'll be able to import NFTs from other blockchains. Currently, we're doing this with one particular project on Wax, but soon we're able to import NFTs from Solana, Ethereum, Flow, and other blockchains into Upland, and then use them in Upland. And so, for instance, I give you one example. Maybe you want to run and operate a digital art gallery in New York somewhere, right, in Manhattan. So now you can import digital art from wherever you bought it on other blockchains. You can import them and put them into your let's say virtual art gallery in Fifth Avenue, and then show them and have a showroom there, and also and then also potentially sell them to other players. So that's the vision. We're going to probably launch later this year. We're just starting with the interoperability. At the same time, you can upload things out of Upland again, and maybe you want to put it on a marketplace like OpenSea and want to have it there. So that a strong believer in interoperability. However, one thing you have to have in mind. So when, let's say, you have a game, one game A, that you have a sword, and the sword has superpowers, right? The question is, when you want to bring it to another game, does it have the same superpowers, right? So that's the first question, because every game somehow works differently. Does it look the same? Every metaverse has a different visual representation of itself. So there's a lot of detailed questions, right? It's not just the technical questions, how to merge blockchains to each other, but it's also the whole, layer above, how things look.
Yeah. Well, generally speaking, the money and value and economies are more valuable the more they're able to trade, right? The more the open economies tend to do better. They tend to have more bridges to other worlds. If you can do more with currency, if you can only buy milk with currency, it's kind of valuable. If you can also buy bread on top of it, it makes it more interesting. And if you can buy a bunch of other stuff, that makes it a super interesting place to be. And if you can participate in the world economy, it's really exciting. Since you're the guy who written a PhD about cryptocurrencies and are very actively designing viable economies, which is not a small thing to design, what is sort of a different economic consideration of designing economies in the real world versus metaverse? At what point this is not a one-to-one comparison? Or I'm just curious about your thoughts on this issue.
Yeah, so maybe, first of all, I want to start out I think in general, a metaverse economy will work because this has been researched for many, many years, very much the same way like any other economy works. You have basically, and you have also different train of thoughts here, but school of thoughts, but you have 4 factors of production. It's entrepreneurships, people who are kicking off things. You have capital, machines, or, money to do them. So that's a second factor. Third factor is then labor, people who are actually doing the work. And the fourth one is then land, which can also be resources. So I think this is also very similar in the metaverse. This just doesn't change. It's like mathematical rules, like 2 + 2 is always 4 in a certain sense. You can discuss the details here, but to the questions there is something different. So what is really different in metaverse is that everything is happening so much faster and so much more transparent. Because when you think about the real economy, you don't have all data. There's always some research. How big is now, the gross domestic product, and are these numbers correct? What is the inflation? Those macro and microeconomic things is always hard to see. In the metaverse, since everything is digital, usually in normal cases you have all the data. You just have to make sense of the data, which is a tricky thing by itself. But you have the data, and everything is happening much faster. It's not like when something is launched or something is done in the real world, it takes maybe 2-3 years to move. In the metaverse, everything is, I don't know, whatever factor, 10 or 100, much, much faster, which can happen. In Upland in particular, we are aware of that. And, everything we do in Upland, we always say is roughly a factor 1 to 5. So if we want to build a house in Upland, you cannot build a house, like putting it in the next day it's already built. You always need a time, right? You need to build maybe a small house, 30 days or 40 days, depends a little bit on the game mechanics we've implemented. But when a real world house maybe takes half a year or so. So that's something how, you try to simulate, what's in the metaverse compared to the real world.
It's very interesting because, you mentioned, the input in blockchain is data, right? In the end, it's a ledger that has a lot of data. And then making sense of that data, especially because every object comes with a lot of history and data attached to it, and there is sort of macro level data.
Yeah, I see a lot of students who are going to be tortured by their professors to analyze the metaverse, because now you have actually much better way to look at and to get to research those topics which were because I'm an economist, right? In economy, you always we're always wrong to predict the future, right? We call it ex ante. It's almost impossible, right? But ex post, we can always explain why something has happened, right? But now maybe including artificial intelligence, and so we will be able to, let's say, simulate better even the real economy looking at the metaverse. That's going to be interesting to see in the next few years what's coming out of that, especially on the research side.
Yeah. I have an economics background as well. It's very it's almost it's like a real world on steroids. You can experiment and see what happens not just in your lifetime, but somewhat quickly, and you can play God to figure out how it all works.
I wouldn't be surprised if governments they you've seen that, like Ecuador
I think Ecuador, a few Ecuador is one of them, and El Salvador I think did as well.
El Salvador, right? El Salvador, sorry. Yeah. That's actually the thing, right? When we always say, when you want to move as a company into the metaverse, right, you have to start an experiment. But I think you can also tell that to countries, hey, you have to move into the metaverse to start to experiment, to run your economy in a better way, right, to learn. But let's see if we can get.
I think it's definitely a tool. And I agree with you that the economies that may not have been as successful in the past seeing it both as an opportunity because they can peg it to Bitcoin, for example, and get all kinds of benefit. But also, I think there's those benefits of being part of a different economy and being part of kind of experimenting and learning. I mean, it is definitely a very exciting world. Maybe I'll ask you the last question before I'll let you sort of give takeaways to folks. As you're looking at a framework of how this world of metaverse will work conceptually, and where it's going, how are you thinking about it?
Well, I think first of all, we don't know how it's going to look like in 10 or 2 or 5 years, right? We have seen now videos, especially in the last 3 months, where how some people imagine how the metaverse is going to look like. I doubt it's going to look like that, because it's up to the people, it's up to the community to create that world. And there will be things we will not have expected. And that's very much when you think back to Web 2.0 or let's say Web 1.0, when people were just replicating newspapers onto the web, right? But that was not how it worked. That social media came up later, right? Idea of that you take maybe when you have a bookshelf, right? They showed bookshelves, on the screen, and people are going to that.
I remember that. Yeah.
Apple, right? Just doesn't make sense. Every media has a different way of interacting with people.
It's like an art, right? Every tool and every watercolors have a different property from oils, and the way you use it, it's just a different tool. The same way the spoon is different from chopsticks. There's some things that are better for one tool on the other, but they have different property and allow you to have a different experience. So to some extent, they have an overlap. They're both tools, and they're both tools for food, or they're both tools for art. But they also have unique properties that make experience. If you don't force a spoon on the chopstick, you will have a different, better experience if you take it for what it is. And I think we learn about those properties as you kind of play with tools and really kind of learn the extent of what's possible. And I think you're right. We're very much in the beginning of that journey to really conclusively say, this is what the world will look like, because we may not just have imagination to predict. Maybe we have imagination to predict 5 steps ahead, but maybe not 50.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. We're always wrong in the long term, right? That's the thing. But what I believe is also where I see, besides the fact that, that the metaverse is the land, we always say Upland is the land of creativity, opportunity, and diversity, by the way. So that's a little bit, and I hope, that we've learned what we've done in the past. But when you think about, in general, the Web 2.0 was all about efficiency, right? I move from one click to the other. I find very quickly something I want to purchase, look on one retailer, then look to another. So everything became very fast and, let's say, very transactional. What I'm very hopeful is now when the metaverse becomes more, every day is part of our life, these experiences. So actually, I hope that we're taking a step back, even though it's, let's say, I don't want to take it wrong, but it's just digital, but it's still an experience, and we take more time with each other. And I hope that this will also drive much more positivity back into, let's say, society as a whole. That's one of the big hopes I have here.
Yeah, no, but I do think, because I have 2 children, and digital means to them, I'm thinking real versus digital, but I think that's an increasingly dated way to look at the world. My girls who are 10 and 12 have a different conception, I think.
They do their homework there, but while they play a game, they talk about school and socialize, and it's just completely different than what most, let's say their parents, including myself. I see that also with my kids, right? They're doing the same.
Yeah, so I think that divide between real and digital, and how easily we can go in and out, and how we lead our lives and what we value is changing. Again, we're kind of discovering the extent of the tool and what's possible, and the world is being redesigned as we speak. Dirk, to say that I enjoyed this conversation is an understatement. It's great to finally meet you, I guess, as in person as we can meet. digitally. I've been a fan of your work for a long time. I know you've been doing this for quite a while. I guess maybe the last, if we have folks here who have different level of understanding blockchain, metaverse, Web3. Some are just being introduced. Others are a little bit more advanced. Others kind of more in the crypto world, which is a very much related world. If folks get nothing else out of the conversation, what is the one or two takeaways that you think, an average human American should get away from this conversation?
I think what you should take away is that that there's a huge opportunity for everyone there. It's not just for the computer geeks or the crypto aficionados, right? The way the metaverse is going to be built out in the next few months and years, it's something where you can really reach new frontiers for yourself and go for them and find new inspirations with others, which you haven't done before, right? We see that in Upland. We see that people gathering together in San Francisco, but most of them have never been to San Francisco virtually, but they meet because they have like-minded interests. You find so many interesting people, and you experience things with them, which is a unique opportunity. I think we have here with the metaverse.
Thank you so much. Again, I really enjoyed this conversation, and it's a dream come true to actually have it with you. So thank you for agreeing, and thank you for sharing your thoughts and making predictions and giving advice. I very much thoroughly enjoyed it.
Okay, thank you very much thank you for having me. Thank you. See you in the metaverse.
Absolutely. I'll see you in the metaverse. And thank you everyone for joining, being part of this. This has been a very active conversation. As I've been saying for now quite a while, the future belongs to builders. If you're excited, concerned, interested, curious, see you at Metaverse. That's a place where building is happening. And I really like what Dirk said, is that yes, it's a very technology-rich product and experience. However, the experiences that we design are not just for technology, they're for everyone. And that means that your contribution is welcome and really should be part of it. So if you're curious, interested, concerned, or excited, definitely consider learning more, being part of building, and just be part of it. And then as a last reminder, if you have suggestions of other builders, thought leaders, doers, supporters of blockchain, metaverse, Web3, cryptocurrency, that should be on the show that we can all collectively learn from, definitely let me know who those people are. The time to learn is now. It's definitely a good time to learn. We're all learning together. And I want to make sure that we bring people who can guide us on this journey. And with that in mind, thank you so much for joining, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.